Hi, welcome to Motivational Monday, and I'm so glad that I have this opportunity to share some thoughts with you. I'm calling this Monday Awkward Conversations in the Quarantine. I've received a number of calls and emails and texts asking me questions about what's been going on, how they should feel about this, what are my thoughts, and so over the next little while, and we'll see how long it goes, I'm going to attempt to answer a few questions each Motivational Monday segment, and hopefully they'll be something to stimulate your thinking, to give you cause to pause, and really, in the end result, is that for all of us to get better. So hopefully it'll be very helpful to you. So the first question I want to attempt to answer is something that I've gotten a lot of, and this question is, should I feel guilty for being white? So the first thing I want to say is please, 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 you should not be made to feel guilty for being white. In as much as I not need to feel guilty for being black, the reverse is true, that you should not be made to feel guilty for being white. I should say though that a lot of what's taking place right now is that there are a lot of preferences and biases that we haven't known that we've had. And by that I mean that we all come with preferences and biases. I'll give you a simple one. I grew up pretty much all of my life here in Montreal, and I love hockey. Hockey is my first sport, and so I am preference to hockey. There are others, I like football, baseball, but really hockey is my preference and my bias. We have preferences and biases in terms of the concerning of friends and who we hang out with, where we live, and sometimes we don't realize that our preferences and biases border on something that feels like discrimination to others. Some things that are we feel that are could be racist, but maybe their preferences and biases is hiring practices. How about the times when it seems like this person should get the job, but because of maybe a preference, he looks like me, he talks like me, so I'm probably going to lean that way. I'm concerned when we hear the word systemic racism all the time, because basically it means that it's in the system, it's in the water, there's nothing that we can do about it. And yes, there has been racist attitudes and racist agendas that have pervaded the society for a long time, but is everything racist? Because if everything is racist, then it cheapens when real things happen. So yes, there are people who are racist. Yes, there are people who are very discriminatory in their actions, their attitudes, and their words. But I would like to believe, based on some realities, that a lot of us, our preferences kind of push us away from other people, and we don't even realize it. We don't realize that our biases are pushing us away from other people. And one of the reasons why I'm concerned when we always hear systemic racism is that it puts the responsibility on the system, when in reality the responsibility is actually on the individual. Our actions, our choices, our values, our truths. And I would suggest to you, and I would say to you, that maybe it's time for us to look at some of our preferences. How do you treat others is like a $10 question. Following the golden rule that we should treat others as we would want to be treated ourselves. So while you shouldn't feel guilty, I do think that it's time for all of us to take an introspective look to see, do we have biases? Do we have preferences? When you should be maybe asking your coworker who you talk to, but you never invite them over for lunch, out for lunch, or to your house, or for coffee, and you invite the one that looks like you all the time, maybe your preference is speaking louder than you even realize it. And you wouldn't consider yourself racist, but your preference is speaking. Maybe it's the time when you could invite Johnny and his family over to your house for a barbecue. You invite all the other people over, but you never invite him. And yet you'd say, oh, we get along, but your preference may be speaking louder than you even imagine it. So don't get hung up and say, oh, you're saying that there's no racism. No, there is racism. But if you think about it, some of us, if not most of us, have preferences and biases that speak very loud and clear, and we don't even realize it. So we need to be very aware of it now, because it's wide open, and to consider that. It should be okay that I can show emotion. Sometimes, you don't have to get all emotional, but really, when you think about it, with some of the things that have happened, it should be okay for you to accept the fact that I could be upset and concerned, and it hurts me to the core when I saw how George Floyd died. I didn't say rage because that helps no one, but to be allowed to feel, express my feelings should be okay in the context of a relational connection. And we can grow with the bumps and bruises of learning about each other. I want to give you a few thought provokers. Is your heart want to see true fairness for every citizen? Is justice a value that you support? Do you believe that ultimately there is one race, the human race? Do you refuse the idea that people of color are inherently inferior? Do you reject any form of apartheid or segregation? If you consider yourself a follower of Christ, do you agree that the spirit of racism is in conflict to the spirit of the gospel? I would like to think that every person of conscience would answer yes to the first five, or in the affirmative, and that the follower of Christ would affirm the sixth one. So if there's something wrong, we got to fix it. If the problem runs deep, let's look deep for deep solutions. If we're part of the problem, let us be part of the solution. That's what humility calls for. Truth needs to come to the light. There's no reason to be fragile. Let us do what is right. And if we're falsely accused, we need to be strong enough and convinced enough and convicted enough to push back with the truth of who we are and who we are actually. If some of our earliest laws protected racism, then we need to recognize and admit it. No one claims that America and Canada are perfect. Plus, we weren't the ones who made those laws in the first place. There's this great saying that I heard. It is those who are secure who can be humble. The insecure take protection in unreasonable pride. So, to my white friends, you don't have to feel guilty. In the same respect, I don't have to feel guilty, and I should be able to express my emotions based on some of the injustices and the struggles that I face. But I believe that together, if we can see that maybe we all have some preferences and biases, while not racist, they have held us apart. And if we can start to smash some of those, acknowledge, recognize, and start to change those, go a long way to great change. Do you really feel that relationships are the key to breaking the racial divide? I wrote a post a week or so ago called Who's Coming to Your House? And it's really all about hospitality. You know, we've become a society of clicks and tweets and comments and likes, but relationships are in short supply. I don't know about you, but I do have a few friends who only answer text and then they'll answer the phone. But it just stands to reason and just show that we are a nation of in sad supply of really close relationships that really matter. I had a conversation with my dad one day. I was about 15 or 16 and we came home from church and we got talking about relationships in the church. And he said to me that there were people in the church who had been friends for 20 years and they'd never graced the threshold of each other's door, which floored me because growing up in my house, I mean, everybody was at our house all the time. We lived in a neighborhood that was French, English, Ukrainian, Polish, and Italian. And we're all at each other's houses all the time, but the predominant place that anybody was at, or everybody was at our house. And my parents, you know, my mom was biracial, French-Canadian, biracial North Carolina girl. My dad was a black Bermudian. And somehow they opened the doors to people coming to our house. In fact, after my dad died 17 years ago, the amount of people who would come and say, you don't understand, your dad opened up friendship windows for me and your dad just showed so much hospitality. I saw it. My parents were like that. And I really believe that a lot of this issue that we face in terms of the racial divide or racial split or non-understanding, if you will, is because we don't have relationships that really matter. Sometimes we are looking for the organic relationships. I have a friendship with my best friend Dale. It's been 44 years of lots of fun, tough moments, heartaches, wins, thrills, but it's been phenomenal. Dale is a charming, blue-eyed, blonde, freckled, almost nice guy, and I'm the regal one. It's all lies. But we were talking a couple weeks ago about what it was like growing up in each other's homes. And he said he remembers my mom treating him better than my brother and I. And I remember his mom always giving me as much ice cream as Dale had, because Dale was an ice cream fanatic. And I call her mom still today, to this day. And she made me feel like I was her third son. And it was more than just the ice cream, but it was like how she made me feel. And we were talking about how our family, like my family, made him feel like he was like the third son. His mom made me feel like I was the third son. And there's those organic relationships that are great. But really, I really honestly believe that in this time, there's going to be some awkwardness in the moving towards relationships, but we have to break through the feeling of awkwardness to get there. Learning about different people and customs, it needs to happen. One of the reasons why we need to be hospitable in terms of the racial divide is that it fights isolation and loneliness. And how would we get to know each other if we never break the pattern? We have these patterns, we need to break them. To develop empathy. You know, it's funny. How can you fight for me if you don't know me? And empathy and getting together and connecting really helps me to get to know you, and you get to know me. When you get to know my story, you get to know how I've lived, my likes and dislikes. When we get past a lot of the surface things, hi, how are you, but getting into the deeper issues of life, it really matters. And we're real people battling real issues, and we need each other in our journeys. It's much harder to be careless when you're looking into someone's eyes, and the reverse is true. Getting together, connecting in real connected relationships allows us to be real. And if there's anything this current crisis is showing us, that we cannot take for granted the absence of connection, because we don't know who we don't understand. How can we know who we don't understand? How can we get to some idea of like Johnny's pain, what he's gone through, what he's been through, what you've been through? How do we know if we've never connected? You know, it's interesting, this word hospitality in the Greek, the first word means love and the second word means strangers. So when you put it together, it means the love of or for strangers. And we don't need to be strangers anymore. Isn't that beautiful? We don't need to be strangers anymore. But it's going to take effort, awkwardness, but movement forward to shift the racial conversation towards healing. And as I said before, how can you really fight for me, and how can I really fight for you if you don't get to know me? So I hope this first awkward conversations in the quarantine has been beneficial to you. Like I said, we'll do it again soon. If you have any questions, I do have some more that I've already received. But if you have some questions you'd like to ask, please ask them. God bless you. I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great week. And I hope you start thinking about, hey, I got to break through. And even if it's going to be awkward, I have to start having some conversations. Have a wonderful day.